So that first Vanilla Fudge album came out in August 1967, right smack in the middle of the Summer of Love, so called. That was quite a time for music. On June 1st, the Beatles put out Sgt. Pepper. June 25th, they performed All You Need Is Love on that, worldwide satellite hookup. In between those two events, you had Monterey Pop Festival. Pink Floyd's first album came out. Cream, The Doors, Procol Harum, Jefferson Airplane, Rolling Stones, all going on. But with all that, you guys still managed to break through into the top 10 with your cover of the Supreme song, You Keep Me Hanging On. And, I appreciate the observation you make in the book about your arrangement being more tuned into the meaning of the lyrics than the original. I mean, it's not supposed to be like a toe tapper.
Well, I mean, see, Hanging On wasn't top 10 first time it came out. It was the second time it came out it went top 10. But it introduced us to the world. And when the album came out and went top 10 without having a smash single, we were the first band to ever do that.
Nice.
And then it was on the charts probably for a year. And the other album, because in those days we did 2 albums a year. So after we did the first album, it was released like in the summer of '67, and then we did another album, which was The Beat Goes On, which is the Hitler one.
Yeah.
That was released in February or something like that. And then when that album started bombing and killing us, we went in immediately and recorded another one. So that came out as well. And we had 3 albums on the charts in different areas. I would like the first album was probably number 20. The Renaissance record, which is the third album, was maybe in the top 15. And The Beat Goes On was like number 60 or 70. Mm-hmm. So they released the single again. The single went to top 10, and it brought the first album up to like number 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And Renaissance was still in the top 20 or 30. And Beat Goes On was still on the charts. So we had 3 albums on the charts and a top 10 single. That's when it was really hot.
It was, but it actually had legs beyond that, because anybody listening who's seen The Sopranos or Mad Men, both those hit TV shows featured that track prominently, which has got to go along with
right.
Keeps interest in the band alive, and also the tune fit the storyline of both those shows, Sopranos and Mad Men. So you already mentioned that when you were in Vanilla Fudge, you started playing louder and hitting harder, because they played louder. They were one of the louder bands you'd been in, and also, the technical limitations. And, you started using bigger drums to the extent that you ended up with the biggest kick drum in the business that you said you got at a pawn shop for a whopping $5. So that seemed like money well spent.
Oh, definitely. It started a whole new fad in rock drumming.
Yeah. And I want to be sure to mention that in addition to your drumming, your vocals were also an integral part of the Vanilla Fudge sound. Another thing that comes through in the book is you had this penchant for meeting legends back when they were still unknown, including a promising young guitarist who was going by the stage name Jimmy James, who of course later reverted to his given name, Jimi Hendrix. And then after he was a bona fide rock star, he invites you to a listening party for his latest album, Electric Ladyland. And you said that he seemed insecure about it and he in need of reassurance. So
he was a very insecure kind of guy, introverted,
Sure.
Off stage. He was very quiet and not very wild off stage. But he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he listened to that album, he just sat there quietly and watched the reactions of everybody.
Yeah,
so everyone said, "Oh man, I'm not crazy about it. I wonder what he would have said."
Well, that's the
but
funny
everybody
thing.
loved it, of course, because it was great.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is, it's from today's perspective, it's like a classic, and the idea that somebody would be like, "Oh, gee, is this any good? What do you think?" It's just kind of a funny image from today's point of view. So after Vanilla Fudge, you formed Cactus, and you guys played at Isle of Wight, which ended up being Jimmy's last public performance, because sadly he died 3 weeks after that.
Yeah.
We've had Bobby Whitlock from Derek and the Dominoes on the show, and he and Eric Clapton were supposed to go see Jimmy that very night, the night he died, but they got they got too drunk beforehand, so they decided they probably shouldn't drive. Imagine if Clapton and Hendrix died on the same night. How freaky that would have been.
That would have been freaky. But yeah, I mean, Jim McCarty was with Hendrix a few days before he died, because I think after that Isle of Wight show, we went on to do some other shows in Europe with Cactus. And then we went back to New York, and Jimmy McCarty stayed in London and hung out with Jimmy for a few days, I think. Because he was in the Buddy Miles Express, McCarty, and Jimmy produced them, so they got to be good friends.
Nice.
I know at the Isle of Wight, I remember seeing them they were sitting down backstage together with two guitars and just messing around. I can't remember if it was the night we played or the night Jimmy played,
Yeah.
because I think we were there both nights. We were there the night we played, and I think Jimmy played the next night.
You'd mentioned that Vanilla Fudge had headlined a show in '69 at a relatively modest-sized venue where your opening acts were Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull. So, like, move that concert into the '70s and see how many people show up.
Yeah, right? That would have been a big one. That was the Kinetic Playground in Chicago. And I had gotten John Bonham a Ludwig endorsement deal. I helped him get it. And that day, Ludwig showed up with a bunch of new stands that they were experimenting with. They were heavy duty and all that. And we gave it back to them, broken, that night.
Yeah, I bring it up because, that was another hotshot who you met on his way up, John Bonham, who basically copied your drum setup. He goes, "I want that." After seeing you play, as you mentioned, you threw the kid a bone and got him that endorsement deal with Ludwig. I hope Ludwig thanked you every day for many years to come for doing that.
Not really, but I mean, I said this group is going to be big. I keep saying it's an understatement of 5 decades, probably going on 6 decades now.
Yeah, they did okay.
Yeah, not bad, right?
And interestingly, it was John Bonham who was the one who told you Jeff Beck wanted to work with you and Tim, because like you had said, Jeff was like an introverted kind of guy, too shy to ask. And you did this one-off TV commercial.
Well, it wasn't. It was a radio commercial, not
Radio.
TV.
Okay, my bad.
It was a Coke commercial we did for Vanilla Fudge. Our guitar player got sick, and Jeff Beck filled in for our guitar player. So it was me, Tim, Jeff, and Mark Stein as well. But the funny thing was, we did 2 songs. On both those songs, I sang one and Tim sang one. I don't know why Mark didn't sing one. He was the main lead singer of Vanilla Fudge.
Definitely.
But I sang one and Tim sang one. It was kind of weird.
Yeah. And then eventually you guys did form a band with Jeff, but, he was in a car accident that left him out of commission for a considerable amount of time. So before you got to form Beck Bogert Appice, that was Cactus, we mentioned, with Jim McCarty and Rusty Day. And one of the interesting things about those days was the story you told about jamming with Johnny Winter and Janis Joplin. And she was like force-feeding you Southern comfort.
So we played the Miami Pop Festival. And it was Johnny Winter, Janis Joplin, all the band. Grand Funk was on that also. And we were the headliners, Vanilla Fudge. And there was a jam going on. Johnny Winter came up and played with us, and Janis Joplin came up and sang with us. And in the guitar solo, she came back to me and she said, "Hey, baby, try some of this." And she shoved this bottle of Southern Comfort in my face, tipped it up, right? And I had a big swig of it. And I never really drank Southern Comfort before that time. That's probably the only time I drank it. And I almost fell off the drum stool. It was like so potent. And she was like amazing, She was like amazing. She's drinking this stuff and singing her butt off, and what a wild,
Yeah, I hadn't heard that type of story about her, so that was interesting to read. But, we were talking about Vanilla Fudge, Cactus, Beck Bogert Appice, and everything. And, I find it interesting because Cactus was sort of a compromise because you had to wait to work with Jeff. But then Rod Stewart advised you that Cactus might be a better situation than working with Jeff, not from a musical standpoint per se, but because he said Jeff doesn't stay with anything very long. It actually proved to be the case because you guys are in the midst of a lucrative tour, and it sounds like he just bailed out on you.
Yeah, and then we did continue after that, but it was never the same. We never came back and did another American tour.
Yeah.
And we did some stuff over in Europe. Tried to record an album twice. Tried to record an album with Sly Stone producing. That didn't work out. And eventually in 1974, last gig in London, it was over,
Well, after that, you suggested doing a jazz rock album as Beck Appice, and was a great idea, just like the Muppets. But you ended up getting hijacked. That was packaged as a Jeff Beck solo album with no acknowledgement of your contributions, which were obviously considerable, which also sucks.
I mean, I was when we played with BBA, I would always drive in the car with Jeff. Me and Jeff would be together. And because it was a trio, Tim would drive with the tour manager in another car. So we would listen to cassettes, and I would bring my cassettes with me. I would bring Billy Cobham's album, Vishna, all that jazz rock stuff that in 1972 was really starting to happen.
Yeah.
I guess it started happening first in America because Jeff never really heard that stuff before. And he loved it. So when the PBA thing broke up, there was a song that we had written for the second album that we that appeared on Jeff Beck's anthology album called Jizz Whiz. There's an instrumental, starts out in 9/8, 13/8, or 11/8, and then goes to 6/8, then 3/4. Had all these time changes, total instrumental. I always say that was like the bridge from BB-8 to Blow by Blow.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was, like a jazz rock kind of song.
Nice.
And then I was over in England for 3 months working with Jeff, rehearsing, writing songs, and ended up in the studio with George Martin for about 10 days. And then after the 10 days, our manager said they couldn't work out a deal with Jeff's people and that I should just not do the rest of the album or not do the album. And only recently I realized I never got paid a dime for it. My songwriting got ripped off on that one as well. And then it comes out and it sells 2 million copies as a Jeff Beck album. Really pissed me off.
I don't blame you, man. I mean, it was a platinum selling album, no writing credits for you, even though you did. And that sucks.
Yeah. Not even to mention that I was involved in the creating of it.
Yeah,
and the beginning.
And the whole thing was your idea. It was all your concept.
Yeah. That happened again later with Rod Stewart when we got Jeff and Rod together to do People Get Ready.
Yep.
And it started in my house. Jeff was hanging with me for 2 weeks in L.A. We was partying, having a good time, and he wanted to do some music. We went to my buddy Dwayne Hitchings' house, who had a little studio, came up with this track. That riff, that was the guitar riff, that was Dwayne Hitchings' riff he wrote on the keyboard. And we put the whole arrangement together, and then we called up Rod. We went to meet Rod with Jeff, and we played him the track. He loved it. I was in the studio with Rod and Jeff as like a producer. I was telling Jeff where to play, Rod where to sing. And since I sang People Get Ready, I wrote the lyrics out, and we recorded it. And then when it comes out, we got no mention at all. The manager called and said, "What do you want?" I said, "Just give me a production credit." Again, I got no money. I didn't pay the dime for it. And I wanted production credit. And it was produced by Jeff Beck, thanks to the boys. That was my production credit.
Nah, that's not cool.
And then they go out and they do a video. They don't even ask us to be in a video. No mention of us, me and Dwayne, in the PR releases of the video or the song. I said, man, this is so selfish,
Yeah, and as you mentioned, even when you're within your rights to sue, going into court, just the attorneys get rich. It doesn't really benefit you usually.
Yeah, I was going to sue Jeff for the blow-by-blow thing, and I said, you know what? I'd rather have him as a friend.
Yeah.
Thinking that sometime in the future we might do something again, but that never really happened.
And not only that, I got to wonder, it doesn't sound like it was 100% him doing that. It sounds like his team or something might have been doing that to make...
Yeah, it was a manager. Just like my manager told me I shouldn't play on the album as a sideman. I could have said, well, you know what? I love this. I'm going to do it. I want to do it. But I listened to them.
Well, as I said at the beginning, you had, peaks and valleys and highs and lows. So we'll put Blow by Blow in there where the beat goes on as one of the lows.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad you wrote about it. I mean, it's important for people to know that stuff. And, we've been talking a little bit about Rod Stewart. Before we get to your time with him, I want to come back to him. I want to jump ahead to King Cobra, because this was a situation. Right. This is a situation where you did get to call the shots. You were the band leader, and it was also the MTV era. When music videos were pretty much mandatory, and everybody was getting everybody's getting more image conscious. So you kind of pulled off a reverse Motley Crue.
Right. Because I was out with Ozzy and Motley Crue were the opening act, and they were hot. They were like a hot item at the time. And when Sharon fired me, she said, "Your name is too big. You need to start your own band." And I did. I started King Cobra, and I said, image-wise, I had black and purple hair, in those days, and I still have some of that. And I said, maybe I should do the opposite and have all blonde guys and have some colors in their hair and make it really wild, and that's what we did. We created this really wild image for the band.
Mm-hmm.
And I got major record deals and major publishing and major merch deals and all that because the image was so strong and the logo was good. I put a lot of money into it. I bought the stage set, bought clothes for the people, guys in the band. Even sent the lead singer for Mark III to karate dance lessons so he could be more agile on stage, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the record company didn't do their job, and it only went to a certain point.
Yeah.
Never achieved gold or status or platinum status. And in the 80s, if you weren't gold or platinum, forget it.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely.
And all those bands that were gold and platinum are all happening again today.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
the 80s is the classic rock right now.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Well, one interesting aspect of King Cobra for me personally is that you and I actually have a bandmate in common.
Oh, who's that?
About 4 years before he worked with you, I played in a band with Jeff Northrup. And
Oh, really?
when I found out I was going to be interviewing you, I asked him if he had any stories from those days. And this is what he sent me. It's pretty interesting. He said when he was recording this complicated guitar solo for the King Cobra track, Walls of Silence, he said he was doing it in sections. He wanted to get every nuance just right. And he said that you told him, sort of rather bluntly, he's never going to be able to pull it off live. So what was the point? And
Right.
he says that even though he played it many times over the years, he says the reality of what you said did hold true. And from then on, in recording sessions, he only played what he could duplicate on stage. So those were actually some words of wisdom. Do you remember that session?
Yeah. I don't actually remember that conversation, but it's something that I believe in.
Definitely.
You should try and record stuff that you can pull off live.
And he said that on that same day when Johnny Edwards was doing his vocals, that Elton John's lyricist Bernie Taupin dropped by the studio, and you told Jeff not to bother him. And Jeff says he didn't bother him, but in retrospect, he says he wishes he had. So,
Well, Elton John was in the studio, in another studio.
not Elton John, Bernie Taupin, who wrote all the lyrics for Elton John.
Oh yeah, Bernie. Yeah.
Yeah, he came by, and you said you told Jeff, don't bother him.
Yeah, I met Bernie when I was with Rod days.